All right. Welcome to our show Spotlight. I am Leanne Linsky, and today we're going to be talking with Kelly Zemnickis. Kelly, come on down. Woo!
Hey! Oh, Price is Right.
Yes, little Bob Barker.
Oh man, I don't know if you watched the Emmys, but the in memoriam reel this year was just like was like, oh man, and Bob was of course there. He was like one of him and John Davidson first TV crushes.
Wow. I heard that
Yeah,
was very sad.
it was very sad, but it just felt, I don't know if I'm just getting to an age now where it just feels like super close, not like, oh, my parents like them. It was just, whoa, it's heavy. It's heavy. But Bob was great. I love Bob Barker.
Big fan of Price is Right and Bob Barker. And I think I mentioned to you, my friend way back had a dog that barked a lot, and she was going to name him Bob Barker. And I thought that was super appropriate. So,
It's kind of perfect.
yeah. And I know that's not what she named the dog, but that's what I called the dog.
Did she name it Drew Carey?
No, it was something I cannot for the life of me remember anything but Bob Barker. So
All good.
I'm so glad you're here because you're doing really cool stuff, both in person and you become quite the regular face on within the Plauzzable community, which is very exciting. And you're
Mhm.
bringing a new show, which we're going to discuss. But you also just celebrated your comedy versary. So I'd love to hear about how you got into comedy and what that journey's been so far.
Yeah, so I just celebrated 8 years as a stand-up comedian, as a working stand-up comedian, which is even better. Um, but my comedy journey is kind of in two parts. I started as a teenager on the Toronto comedy scene, but in the background, like as a technician, as a stage manager, I'd be setting up the lights, doing the tickets for the shows. So I was in the clubs, but I was never the person who was front and center. And so I did that for like a really, really long time. And I found that as I got into my 30s, I was still stage managing these kind of shows, but every time I was setting something up, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I had this voice in my head that was like, why aren't you telling the jokes? You should go do that. And I couldn't figure out who was saying it, but it wouldn't stop. So when I was 37, I had the unfortunateness of finding out that someone I loved dearly was quite ill, and what ended up being the last conversation him and I ever had together just left me with like a really like a big light bulb moment. That's the easiest way I can put it. And I got off the phone and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do all the things I have ever thought of doing. And stand up was one of them. And a week later, I did my very first set.
Wow.
I just went and I called some friends. I was like, can I be on your show? And they were like, yeah. And I did it.
That's amazing. And here you've been working in the business in some aspect all along and hearing these voices in your head, which I completely relate to. I don't know that they're always telling me to do comedy, but they're telling me other things. But yeah, and to have something so life-changing make that kind of impact you is tremendous. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I've often, and I'm sure people who have experienced loss and through that have done something that they never thought they'd ever do. I've often wondered, like, would I have still done stand up if he was still here? And it's kind of like a really deep thought that I think about sometimes. And I really wish that he could be at my shows. But he left me with a crazy, wonderful gift. And I'm really glad I just listened to him. And now I get to make people laugh, which is the best thing ever. So,
what a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's really great. And I know you're doing other things that are creative and you are very involved in other aspects in film and things like that. Do you wanna mention any of those accomplishments?
Sure. And the crazy thing is, like 2016 was really the year that my life changed in a major way, along with learning on my own, really, how to be a stand up. I never took any classes. I also pitched to a complete stranger the idea that I should make a documentary about them. I was doing this at the exact same time. I'd never done either of these things before, but that ended up becoming my first documentary, which is called No Responders Left Behind. And so I get to do this great thing of like telling stories either through making people laugh or tackling some more serious topics. But yeah, I do that too. So documentary filmmaker, got a baking show on YouTube.
Yeah.
I just I like being creative. I like being busy.
Yeah,
So
and
sometimes I put too much on the calendar, but
by the way, not only did you pitch it maybe to a complete stranger, but you were working with Jon Stewart on this?
yeah, I was inspired. So the easiest way to describe the film is about the healthcare struggles of 9/11 first responders post September 11th, 2001. So the film is more about their health rather than the issue of that day.
Right.
And I was really inspired by watching Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. He got me really active in, learning more. Nothing was really on my mainstream news here in Canada. And as a result of pitching to this man named John Field, who is a good friend of Jon Stewart's, Jon Stewart got involved in our film as well. So I got to spend like on and off 3 years with him, going to different events, places like the US Capitol, Arlington Cemetery. And I will say he is a fantastic person. He's absolutely lovely. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I think the journey you're sharing is so amazing and inspiring for people because, I think one of the key things is like you said, you had this voice of like, why am I not doing this? And you didn't act upon it. And it wasn't until like you were later in your 30s even. And then you had a life-changing moment, which is like, why not say yes to these voices and proceed? And not only did you do that, but oh my gosh, you asked, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Are you on board? It got a yes, which is
Yeah.
fantastic, and then to be able to work with such wonderful people within the industry on such a awesome project because I watched it, it's fantastic. So, I
Yeah.
recommend. It was very so important, the topic and everything that you've done. So, that leads me to my next question for you is, I know you have this new show you're gonna be doing on Plauzzable. Well, can you tell us about, like, what's your inspiration and what can we expect?
For sure. So I'm really big on my life motto is just do the thing. And long before I was making documentaries or being a stand-up, if I felt like doing something, stop talking about it, just go do it. So people may be surprised to know that in Canada we have absolutely zero late night talk shows. We
Wow.
don't have one here. You've got a lot in America, you've got late night chat shows in the UK. We don't have anything here. So, I mean, we have, but they just didn't last. So, this is my offering with the Midweek Late Night Show that we are doing. And I say we because it is both myself as the host and my musical band leader of sorts, second chair, the Velvet Duke, who's a great friend of mine. Velvet is based in Ottawa, Canada, which is our nation's capital. And I'm based in Toronto, Canada, which is the city that thinks it's the nation's capital. So it's we like ourselves here in Toronto. So Velvet was game to be the musical addition to the show, and I'm so grateful. And we're just going to bring on one guest and have a good 30-minute chat. And it's going to be guests that are either comedians or maybe authors. I've got painter friends. I've got a really great creative group of friends. So I'm going to bring someone new on each time we do it. And Velvet will provide some musical improvised accompaniment to the show. So it's going to be really fun. We're going to have headlines. People are going to hopefully learn a bit more about Canada, and it's going to be a good time. So it'll be a monthly show starting February 7th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, folks like it. Maybe we'll do it more frequently, but for now, at least, it'll get your month started on Plauzzable.
This is really exciting. And I know like when you're in, you go all in on things. So I'm really excited to see it. And I hope other people register. Tickets are only $5, which I think is a screaming deal to get someone like Kelly and the Velvet Duke and
Yep.
share an evening with them. Oh my goodness, how fun. So I'm
It's gonna be really fun.
yeah, who's your first guest?
So our first guest is has the great distinction of being the very first friend I made doing stand-up comedy. It was so great as a woman of a certain age, quote unquote, to make a friend with a fellow woman of a certain age.
Yeah.
So it's Monica Hamburg, who is a Montreal-based comedian and storyteller and voiceover artist and producer. And Monica, along with a friend of hers, has recently started doing a show in Montreal where they focus on women over 40 for a comedy night. So you get these incredible voices that are not heard enough of. And so, yeah, we're going to bring on Monica to talk about that and just get in some sillies with her. So I'm really excited. She's really lovely.
I love it. This is really cool. And it's great. You're putting Canada on the map for late night. And not
My own little way. My own little way.
internationally here on Plauzzable. So this is really cool. I'll put the details in the chat. People can register for your show right here on Plauzzable on February 7th and then the following months. So that's really great. Is there any last or final words you want to share with everybody before we sign off?
Support live comedy, whether live means going to a brick and mortar club or being online, because this is still live, friends. This is still in person. It's just a different way of doing it. But just support your local comedy and your living artists, and yeah,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have a really good time. I can be serious with the topics that I do in the documentaries, but we're gonna make you laugh with the show. So.
And she does, folks. She does. So, all right. Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing about you and about your show. We're excited for all your success this year. And to everybody else, we'll see you soon.